So now I'm going to continue. So we were talking about taglines. So one of the things that you should really consider are taglines for your business. Why? Because they actually explain exactly what your business is all about in very short words. And it's you want something that's what they call stickable, or will stick in the minds of people. So these are the kinds that are out there. So L'Oreal, because you're worth it. I remember that tagline, and it's a brilliant, because L'Oreal, it's a more expensive product, and so they're saying you're worth it. You can spend the little bit extra, So again, look at all these types of taglines that are out there and create your own. And we can play around with that if you want, especially when we get into the capstones. Coming up with really strong taglines is really important. The next thing, and again, this is probably one of the areas that I think you must understand as a marketer, is you have to establish a brand. So everything needs to fit together. So your brand has to match your message, and your message has to match your target audience. So these are all the things that have to work together. A brand is a set of attributes, positive or negative, that people associate with a company. And we can look at, good brand messages, or good brands and not such great brands. But of course, these are the things that you have to take a look at. And also, another thing with branding is sometimes you have to take a stand when you brand. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but you kind of can't waffle off of saying, well, I'm a really strong luxury brand, but it's okay if I have a product that isn't quite as expensive. No, you have to stick to your brand message, because that is part of what you have to do. The brand management is the monitoring of the brands through a program called brand management, which again is sort of the next phase. So what is a brand? Different ways of thinking about of meaning a brand. A brand is a promise to serve stakeholders' interests. Very important, very, very important. This is what you're there to do. You are serving the stakeholders' interest. So if you're Walmart, you're going to stick to a lower price brands. You're not, and that's the promise. You promise to give lower price items to these people. You're not going to all of a sudden sell Teslas in a Walmart store, for example. A brand is a firm's guarantee of a level of performance. How good it's going to perform as well. Again, a Tesla is going to be quite different than buying a Chevrolet. Okay, again, different messages, different elements. A brand indicates the promise of a firm makes to those it serves, which is basically the same thing as the first one, which is a promise to serve your stakeholders. A brand expresses a firm's reputation. Absolutely, this is really important, as well as credibility. Those are the two that are really critical. So when you're thinking about what it is that you're going to be offering, what is your brand and how credible is it? And remember, as you interviewed your entrepreneurs, they all had very specific brands that were selling a very specific message. So and they were trying to stick very closely to their brands, if you remember correctly. And if you were listening intently to the presentations, you will have remembered that is one of the key elements that an entrepreneur does, and make sure that they deliver on. Like, for example, I'm thinking about the one with the cleaned products. That's all she sold. That's all she sold. She didn't start introducing other types of products because it didn't fit the brand message. So think about that. A brand is an indicator of trust and reduced risk. Exactly. You have to, again, it's you're building trust with your customer. If you want them to keep coming back to you, then you have to build that trust. A brand describes a company's nature. Yes, it does. I mean, what does it do? Again, these are all things that you can take a look at in terms of what is a brand, and brand management and brand messaging. So establishing a brand, now this is hard. How does a firm establish a brand? Well, you have to determine what is your brand, right? What is it going to be, number one? On a philosophical level, a firm must have meaning in its customers' lives. It must create value, something for which customers are willing to pay. Yes, but you have to decide on what you want those customers to think about when they think of your brand. Okay, so you've developed this persona of your customer. Now you sort of think, okay, well, what is it that they would like to hear from me? And one of the things you could do, of course, is test it out. Say, what does this mean to you? One of the things that's very, very important in marketing is testing and learning, testing and learning. And that's something that we can talk a lot more about. On a more practical level, brands are built through a number of techniques, including advertising, public relations, sponsorship, support of social causes, social media, and good performance. Yes, that's once it has been established. That's what you can do to build your brand. That's what it's all about. And you use these methods, or what we call tactics. These are the tactics of how you build a brand. And then, of course, you've got your logo, your website, your Facebook pages, Instagram, and so on. But first of all, you have to establish it, okay? You need to understand what is it going to look like, and then build from there. And this is something that that is probably, in my opinion, the fun part, because it could be the dangerous part too, because if you get it wrong, then you've kind of destroyed the brand, or you're not going to build the brand. But I think you really have to be clear as to what it is that you're trying to do, what it is that you want your brand to have, and from there you can start doing all these other tactical measures. So a strong power of a strong brand. Well, ultimately, a strong brand can be very powerful. Look at McDonald's. Look at Rogers. Look at TELUS. Look at Nike. Look at any brand. Starbucks. Look at even a Walmart. I mean, they have incredibly strong brands. So this is what you have to kind of look at. Now, you don't necessarily want to be a Walmart today, but maybe that's something that you plan to be in the future, and that's okay. If you want to go low price and high volume, because that's typically what happens in that world: low price, high volume, or high price and not so high volume, except that I'd say Louis Vuitton is high price and high volume, but anyway, but typically, higher price items you don't sell as many of, but that's what you kind of have to think about. So over 50% of consumers said that a known or trusted brand is a reason to buy a product. And that's something that's very, very interesting as well. So this is where loyalty comes in. This is where you build brand loyalty. And remember, one of the things that's critical in business is 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. So, constantly going back to your customer base and continually trying to sell them more product is really, really critical as well. So you really want to make sure that you build that brand loyalty with your customer, and you could keep selling to them, of course, wanting to acquire new customers along the way. So you have your marketing mix, okay, the 4 P's, which you will learn a whole learn more about in your marketing class. But I will tell you that there's more than 4 P's, okay? But the old established idea of the 4 P's is here. So you've got your product, you've got your price, you've got your place, where am I going to sell this, and your promotion. And all this is what your marketing mix looks like. So what is the product that I want? How much am I going to sell it at? Where am I going to distribute it? And how am I going to sell it? Okay, that's the way you think about the 4 P's. Now there's people involved in the P's now, and there's other P's, and I can talk to you further about that in the class if you like. But the basics of marketing is this: you need to have the 4 P's, and you need to know what your product is, what price you're going to sell it at, where you're going to sell it, and then how you're going to sell it, or how you're going to promote it. And we're going to just zip through this because it's really something that you're going to learn more about when you do your marketing course. But it's about the product. What is your product? Where do you want to put it? How is it going to fit within the marketplace? Some startups meet this challenge by using reference accounts. Okay, so a reference account is an early user of a firm's product who is willing to give us testimonial regarding his or her experience with the product. So you can start with that. That's why some of those people come along and say, give me a testimonial on my product so that others will buy it. This is where influencers come along. But anyway, that's really a sort of a, to me, that's a secondary element. Really, you have to figure out what is that product that you're going to sell, and then you can start deciding on, getting some references and so on. So two methods of setting the price of a product. Well, the cost-based pricing, the list price is determined by adding a markup percentage to a product's cost. So that's something that you would do in certain types of products. You would do whatever the product price is, and then you mark it up. And if you think about the Shopify scenario, the students bought the product for a certain price, and they've marked it up, obviously. So and that can, and in I'll be honest, in the retail sector, what they do is they buy it low, they mark it up super high, so that they, when they do discounts, it will, you can still make money at it. And then value price, which is the list price determined by establishing what customers are willing to pay for a product, that you might be able to do um, when I had my business, and that's something that you can do maybe in a more service oriented business. When I had my business, that's sort of how I did it. Especially even when I was doing my catering business, that's how I did it. I did the value based pricing. I figured out what would customers be willing to pay for this product. So I think that's really, really critical. I think I'm going to stop there because, again, I need to do this in sections. And so I will continue soon as